Hello. My name is Jason Denton. I'm a department chair in the Digital Arts and Design degree. And today is a really awesome opportunity to talk to a pioneer and like a titan in the music industry. MC Serch, who here knows about MC Serch? Okay, MC Serch, he's done it all. It's going to be a wealth of knowledge today, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, MC Serch.
You good?
Yes.
How y'all doing? Good. Peace. Peace. Peace.
Okay. First of all, thanks so much for coming in and talking with us today.
It's my pleasure. I can't start though. My wife is not here. Hold on.
All right, everybody chill for a second.
I'm sorry. My wife and son will be here any minute.
So, first of all, just to kind of like get everybody on the same page, Serch is from a group, classic hip-hop group called Third Base. They put out a lot of awesome music. They hit #1 on the hip-hop charts with their single "Pop Goes the Weasel." Serch has, you guys ever heard of this? There's this rapper named Nas. Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah. So Serch discovered Nas and put Nas on and executive produced Illmatic, and it was written, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So essentially, we're sitting here with the person that executive produced and coordinated arguably the best hip-hop record in the history of the music form. So just to kind of put that in perspective of what's going on here today.
Don't you feel lucky? Y'all feel lucky? That was the corniest thing I'm going to say all day, just FYI. I promise.
We'll see.
Yes, it's true.
I'm just kind of spitting his resume a little bit. He discovered another rapper / producer that's incredible that you may or may not have heard of. This dude named MF Doom. Yeah, MF Doom. So let's go ahead. Oh, wait. And then on top of that, there's a million other things, from helping basically create the brand Echo, to marketing and promotion, to A&R, to like every aspect of the business that you might want to know about. He's hosted 2 different shows on VH1. Has anybody seen any of these VH1 shows? The White Rapper Show.
I heard that again. I got 2 records for you now. Oh, okay, got it. Cool.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Got you. So basically, it's just like a real honor to have you come to the school and
It's a pleasure.
and help us out.
Pleasure to be here. I'm also living in Orlando, so been down here for 8 years. So my dream is to hopefully get a position at this school and teach industry classes as an ad hoc professor. So
Is that something you guys would want to see? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's real simple. So your life will be broken up into decades, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s. So for me, the way I broke it down, and my father's watching, hey Dad, love you. The 20s is when you learn. You should use your 20s to learn everything you can. The 30s is when you churn. You sift all of the nonsense out of your life. All the people you met in your 20s that were ear hustlers. Yo, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Yo, son, I got this, and then they did nothing. You get rid of those people in your 30s. Your 40s is when you earn. You'll make the most money in your life. If you learned in your 20s and you churned in your 30s, your 40s, you will make the most money in your life. And in your 50s and on, you return. I turned 50 May 6th. It's my chance to return. So I am about to return all of what I've learned to my culture, to my community, and to the people that want it. If they want success, if they want to be happy, because that's first and foremost. You want to love what you do, have passion for what you do. So that's my pyramid. That's where I'm at right now.
So why don't we just start at the beginning? So what got you into music? What got you into hip-hop in the first place?
So hip-hop was the music that I grew up with. I'm going back now to the late 80s in New York City when hip hop wasn't on tape, wasn't on record, wasn't on the radio, where hip hop was this music that we heard on second and third cassette tapes of different MCs at different house parties, different block parties. And there were different crews. There was the Kango crew, there was the Crash crew, there was Funky 4+1, there was the Fearless 4, there was Lovebug Starsky. So me and my friends, that's what we grew up listening to in Far Rockaway, Queens. So the thing that blew me away is that my personal favorite crew coming up was this crew called the Kango crew. There were 4 dudes from Brooklyn. Surprisingly, they all wore Kangos. And they had all these little skits, Hillbilly Girl, an Indian Girl, and one of the dudes had this skit called Lottie Dottie, and it was really cool. And so I go to High School Music and Art, which is on 135th and Convent in Harlem, and I have to take the A train all the way from Far Rockaway, 2 hours, 22 minutes to get to school. And I go into the lunchroom for orientation, and I see these kids all around this lunchroom table, and they're banging on tables, and there's this dude doing a beatbox. And I can't really see, so I stand on this table hoping not to get in trouble, and I'm hearing these dudes doing Indian Girl. And I'm like, yo, that's I love Indian Girl. Oh, yeah. So I'm start rap along, and I see them, and it's the Kango crew. And they're in my high school. And it's Lance, Omega, this dude Dana Dane, and this dude Ricky D. And the dude next to them that's doing this beatbox is this young kid from Harlem named Dougie Fresh. So I'm like watching these dudes doing their thing, and I'd been writing little raps, but it wasn't nothing serious, it was poetry. Like I was just writing just little rhymes or whatever. I was like, this is a black art form. I'll never be a part of that, and that's okay. Like, it's cool. I'll just do my little raps. And then out of this cypher comes this one white MC, Vanilla B, my man Blake, and he starts rhyming in a cypher, and people are spazzing out. Like, they're like, yo, this kid is incredible. So I'm like, well, if Vanilla B can do it, certainly I can do it. And my whole high school career was about writing rhymes and being the best, trying to be the best MC in that cypher in my lunchroom. Because everybody who came out of my lunchroom, Dana Dane had Nightmares of the Night, he was blowing up. My locker mate, J. Cool, was from the Fresh 3 MCs. They had a record called FRESH, it was blowing up. Ricky became Slick Rick, him and Dougie Fresh put out a record called Lottie Dottie. And it's so crazy, and this is crazy. So I knew Lottie Dottie before the record ever came out. Like, I knew every word to Lottie Dottie in '81, right? So I would impress girls around my way by doing Lottie Dottie like it was my record. Like, I Lottie Dottie, we like to party. And I'd have the effect on my voice in the whole 9. And then one day I graduate, I'm about to graduate, I'm in Limbrook, and I'm going to McDonald's with my homeboys, and it's midnight, and they're listening to Kiss FM, which was the station in New York, and the DJ on their Red Alert is playing Lottie Dottie on the radio. And they're playing it in McDonald's. And this girl that I was kicking it to, they used to hook me up with fries, goes, oh, look, it's Ricky D. Oh. And I was like, where? And she's like, no, you sang that to me on the beach like 2 months ago. You're Ricky D. And this big dude was like, he ain't Slick Rick. And I was like, ping, dipped. And that was it. So that was my first experience in biting. I suggest not biting, ever bite. But that was the beauty of my high school. And that's kind of the beauty of you guys, because might be sitting next to you and homeboy might win an Oscar for editing, and homeboy right here might win a Grammy for like recording, and this dude right here looks like one of the cool kids. Like, he could like have a group, and like, that's the blessing of being in a creative arts environment. Like, you never know which one of your classmates is gonna do amazing things, like create amazing art. So that was my intro. That's how I got involved in hip hop.
Yeah, that's super good advice, because if there's one thing that I could say is, if you don't know every single person in your class, you need go ahead and get to know them, because you have no idea when you graduate and you go to that first interview and then you see your man back there and you're like, oh, and next thing you know, you get the job based off of that. So networking is like unbelievably important, obviously.
Yeah, networking and nepotism. Having somebody in the business already is very helpful.
Yeah.
So,
No, 100%.
one laugh. That's one person who knew what nepotism was. That's dope. Good. Nepotism is the science of having one family member be connected to the industry that you want to be in. And they, thus forth, will give you a job once you... All right, I'm done. Sorry.
It's more official in that accent.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It sounds really official.
Okay, so coming up, very, very few white MCs.
None.
Basically.
None. One.
Right.
Me and one other dude.
Right.
Right.
So what challenges did you face kind of breaking into the industry with that?
I mean, that was the challenge. I mean, hip-hop was an outsider's culture. Radio at the time would only play certain hip-hop records only after 10 p.m. at night, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So we were an outside culture. So I was an outsider in an outsider's culture. What I could do and what I learned to do was I could rhyme off the top of my head really well. And my homeboys from Redfern Projects would kind of bug out because I would do these things. So what they would do is they'd set up these little battles for me. And I would go to Vandermeer Projects in Brooklyn, and I'd go to Marcy and Gates, and I would go all these little battles. And my boy, Understanding, and my other homeboy, Math, would set up these battles. And they'd be like, yo, my man Serch is dope. He'll battle the baddest dude in your project. And they were like, bet, let's do it. Let's get it. And they didn't know I was white. They just said, yo, let's battle. So they put up like 100, right? So my man would hustle. He would put up his 100. And then I'd come off the train, and I'd be walking to the cypher, and they'd be like, yo, 5-0 coming, 5-0 coming. They're like, no, he's not police, that's Serch. And they'd be like, that's the dude that's battling my man? They were like, yeah. He's like, 250, 300, 350. So I'd walk into this battle, and this dude would rip me apart, call me a white boy, or call me a cracker, or whatever. And then what I would do is no beat, a cappella. Most of the guys who would battle in the 80s would battle with a beatbox. I used to love doing a cappella. So I would just basically take the dude's lines that he spit at me and recalculate them. And be like, yeah, that first line you kicked was dope, but you should have said it like this. And that was like whack, like the sneakers on your feet. And I would just like kind of break him apart. And I would win a battle, and then I'd have to fight to get out of there because they would think like, oh, this kid is soft, like I'm gonna test his chin and get that money. So then that would happen, and then I would dip on the train, and then I would go wherever else I would go. So I got a reputation in New York of being a really dope battle MC. And at the time, battling was an art form. And most of the MCs that were coming up, Craig G, MC Shan, KRS, they were all known as battle MCs. So the industry really paralleled towards those guys. So I was always one of these guys that was like, oh, we should put him on. He could probably make a great record. Well, newsflash, my first record was trash. And my second record was okay, but I had to start my own label to put it out. And by the time I got to Def Jam, I'd already met Pete, and I was battling in battles in New York, and at one battle, Russell Simmons came from behind me and said, hey, if anybody asks you, tell them you signed to Def Jam. And that's how I got my deal.
Yeah, that's all right. So third base, raise your hand if you know about third base, right? Okay, so.
And that's good for those who don't, because I'm gonna put you up on game.
Yeah. So third base as a young person that was coming up in hip hop myself, and as a white at the time, I started as a b-boy, and then I moved into emceeing. It was a little tough for white folks in hip hop, and realistically, Serch and third base, that was the one group that was a real hip hop group and not a gimmick that had white MCs in it. And that kind of rhymed too.
Yeah. So the thing for us that was really important when we put out the record is we put it out with no fanfare. Yeah. The first single came out just said third base. There was no promo pictures. We didn't do photo shoots. We didn't do interviews. Me and Pete wanted the first 6 months, we wanted that record just to be dope for the sake of being dope. We didn't want it to be gimmicky. You know, the Beasties were ahead of us. The Beastie Boys were signed to Def Jam as well. They were a little more gimmicky. They were a little more Fight for Your Right to Party and No Sleep Till Brooklyn. But before that, they had a record called Hold It Now, Hit It that was really big in the Latin Quarter where I used to go all the time, and it pissed me off. Because all my boys would be dancing to Hold It Now, Hit It. And I'm like, yo, these kids are corny. Like, they're not even repping right. Like, they don't, this is not what this is. This is what this is. Like, I know what this is. And Pete knew what this was. So when we put out 7 Today, and we didn't want anybody to know we were white. And the record starts to do really well and starts to pick up. And if you ever watch our first video, which is on YouTube, surprisingly, an old man on YouTube, the intro of the video is me with a hoodie on. And I'm walking through all my boys. My boys get Yours Posse from Long Beach and my other boys and yada, yada, yada. And I walk up to this dude and I said, VJ, my brother. And he pulls down my hoodie and it's the Third Base logo. And I turn into the camera and I go, it's the other man. And my man, Pete, throws down a chain to me. And that's how the video starts. People, they were bugging out. We would go to shows and kids would like, they thought for sure we were black. There was no doubt in their mind that we were a couple of brothers from New York who were just making a dope record. So when they found out we were white, 2 things happened immediately. Thing 1 was, get out of here. Get out of here. This is a gimmick. They would call the label and be like, okay, listen, seriously, when is Third Base? When are you going to show us who they are for real? It wasn't until the Village Voice did a piece on us that people started to say, oh, wow. And in New York, they knew. I mean, that was our backyard. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing was black radio wouldn't play our records because we were white. So the biggest challenge was to explain to 400 program directors who grew up in the 60s and 70s and 80s, who experienced racism, why they should bump a black artist out of their playlist and play a Third Base record. And my blessing was that the guy who ran our promotion department, a guy named Wes Party Johnson, may he rest in peace, put me in his office and said to me, if a bunch of crackers are going to try to get played on my brother's radio stations, you better know those brothers backwards and forwards. And you 2 crackers better know each and every one of them program directors. And he threw me a magazine called Radio and Records. And he told me to study it because in 6 weeks we were going on the road to meet these guys. There's no internet, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's shocking. There was no internet. I had to find out about program directors by looking into like magazines, going to the New York Public Library, going to old record labels and pulling up. So by the time I got on the road, I knew that Steve Hegwood at WDAS in Philly originally came from WHUR at Howard and spent 4 years at Howard University being the program director there. And he didn't really start out as the program director at DAS. He started out as an intern. He spent 3 years as an intern at DAS. Then he became the music director. He was the music director from 1985 to 1987. He just became the program director. And his music director is Violet Brown. And Violet Brown came from Houston. And she was originally bing, 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 bang, 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 bang. Every radio station we went to, I had to know everybody's history. Because they would walk me into the office and say, go ahead, tell them why you should play the record. Wes wasn't promoting the record. He was like, go ahead, Serch, tell them why these brothers should play some white boys on the radio station. I'd be like, well, this is why. Da 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 da, bang, 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 this is your history, this is what you want to do. By 6 weeks, we had 62 radio stations on our record. And that's kind of where it started. And then our next single was Gas Face. And, Black cat is bad luck, bad guys wear black. Must have been a white guy that started all that. As soon as brothers heard that, they were, oh! That white boy said, what? What? 80 times a week we playing that record. 90 times a week. And that's kind of where our career went.
So when you first got signed on Def Jam, what was like? How much? Obviously, there was the talent, but what percentage would you say was the hustle and the footwork and the hard work on the business side?
I would say in the beginning it was 85% creative, 15% business.
Got you.
I signed what we used to lovingly refer to in the industry as the left-hand deal. Russell and Lior took 50% of my publishing, didn't give me an advance. He took 85% of my royalties, didn't give me a check. To this day, I've never seen a royalty check from a third base record sold, ever. But for me, I'm not salty, for me, that was my paying dues. Because I would not be on this dais, I would not be talking to him, I would not have my beautiful wife, I would not have my son, I would not have anything in my life if it wasn't for hip hop. So if that's the dues I had to pay by making a classic album and touring the world for free for 2 years and seeing the world and never getting a royalty check, I'm good. That's good money. I'm good. Because everything else in my life was a blessing after that.
So, in terms of first getting in the industry and touring and really start recording and dealing with all of that, what are some lessons that you learned as a recording artist, just in general, that you might be able to pass along?
I think the most important lesson I learned in the early days of being an artist is don't waste time in the studio. You should have your verses tight. You should have your production tight. You should have your verses tight. You should have everything tight. So the only thing you're using the studio for is to lay tracks, lay vocals, mix, and get out of Dodge. That can become a very expensive habit. And I tell people all the time, the studio can be very addictive. It becomes a great love because the music is so loud. And everything that comes out of those speakers you're creating sounds like the best thing in the world. And it feels amazing. And you're mixing and it's tweaking and it sounds amazing. And you could just be in there for hours and doing whatever you do recreationally while you record. And you can just get caught up in it. And then you get that bill. And that bill needs to get paid. So I always tell people, fall in love with your music before you get to the studio. Have everything tight. Use the studio to get it in and out. Spend an hour, maybe 2, to listen and enjoy it and revel in it and feel good about it. But really do all your pre-production as much as you can before you get into the studio. You'll save yourself a ton of money and a ton of time.
So if you go on the interwebs and you look up...
What would we do without him, the interwebs?
I don't know. Probably get a lot done.
True.
So if you go searching around for MC Serch. By the way, did anybody show up here thinking we were searching for MCs? Is there anybody here for...
I heard that, by the way, just FYI.
Yeah.
People were like, yo, you spelled Serch wrong. I'm an MC. I want to spit a hot 16. So I'm glad, because if you are here for that, we'll let you come up here and spit your 16 hottest real quick. Mm-hmm. But thank goodness that's not accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think anybody would admit that anyways.
Okay.
Somebody's sitting there right now like,
Yeah, got it. Yeah, no, I got it.
So if you look on the internet, you can see photos with every person in the world with Serch at some point, from Eazy-E to LL to like everybody. So you, from touring and recording and then really just being like a really phenomenal artist with third bass and your solo stuff, you got any stories that you could tell us about maybe like your early days, maybe like the first time you encountered somebody where you got maybe starstruck?
Yeah, so This is right after Gasface came out. We were in Los Angeles, and LA had 3 radio stations that were actually playing hip hop full time. Actually, the very first 24-hour hip hop radio station was in LA. It was called K-Day. It was an AM station, and they played hip hop 24 hours. So LA was really supportive of our record. And I went into a nightclub, and the DJ was playing all sorts of good music, and me and my friends are dancing, and he throws on Gasface. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know, I hear my record in the club. I see people dancing to it. It's cool. This dude taps me on the shoulder and says, excuse me, are you MC Serch? And I said, yeah. He goes, my boss would like to meet you. And I said, okay, where is he? And he goes, he's over there. I said, that's your boss? And he goes, yeah. I go, that's Stevie Wonder. And he goes, yeah, that's my boss. And I was like, okay. So we walk over, and Stevie's behind the table, and they bring him out of the table. He stands up, and guy brings him over, and he says, Stevie, this is MC Serch. And Stevie gives me £1, and he leans in, and he goes, black cat is bad luck. Bad guys wear black. Must have been a white guy that started all that. Get the gas face for those little white lies. And me and him just start rhyming my verse. Just offbeat while the DJ's playing my record. And like, so I'm bugging out, and I'm like, Stevie, my sister's a huge fan. Like, he's like, let's go to the limo. So we go downstairs, and it's now, I don't know, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and my sister lives on the East Coast, so it's 5 o'clock in the morning. We go in this limo, there's a phone, and I called my sister. And she's like, is something wrong? I'm like, somebody wants to say hello to you. And my sister's name is Sandy, and hey, Sandy, this is Stevie Wonder. I heard you're a big fan, and all I hear is, ah! And yeah, so that's one of my favorite stories.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, at some point, you start making a transition into not just being an artist, but being somebody that's bringing artists up. So obviously, a lot of folks want to know about how you came to come across Nas and how that story went.
Okay. So Nas, and let's just be clear, I didn't discover Nas. In 1991, Nas had a verse on the Main Source album called Live at the Barbecue, which was the hottest verse in New York. Streets the cipher, my raps the trifle, I shoot slugs from my brain just like a rifle. Stampede the stage, I leave the microphone split, play pretty toughy while I'm on some pretty tone-ish. Verbal assassin, my architect pleases. When I was 12, I went to hell for snuffing Jesus. It was a rap. When we heard that in New York, there are 2 times in my life where a line changed the landscape of the culture from my eyes. 1986, Eric B. and Rakim, Eric B. for president, when Rakim said, thought I was a donut, you tried to glaze me. And this is no lie, I threw out every rhyme book I had and started from scratch. Like, I was like, what? And when I was 12, I went to hell for snuffing Jesus, and the rest of that verse, people were like, okay, who is this kid? How do I sign this kid? This kid is fire. And Nas was in the bridge, like 17 years old, not coming out. Like, the only person he hung with was G-Rap. And he'd be at G-Rap's crib in Queens, and that was it. He went from Queensbridge to G-Rap's house, and that was it. And I'd met Nas briefly in like 92 at G-Rap's, because G-Rap had an artist that I was gonna sign. And I got into the business because I was a husband, and I was soon to be a father, and I had a very distinct choice to make, which was to continue being an artist or be there for my children. So I said, I know enough about the business. I think I can do this. I'm going to transition and do this, but I need some great artists. So I'm in the studio recording my solo album for Def Jam, and my man, Matty, C and my man Stretch Armstrong and my man Reef bring all these MCs to my session to jump on this record that I'm doing called Back to the Grill Again. And Nas was there. And everybody's chilling, everybody's hanging out, and Red Hot Lover Tone does his verse, and Chubb Rock does his verse, and I'm thinking about a couple of verses, and Nas hangs out. And at the end of the session, Nas is hanging out there, and he's like, yo, I need your help. You know, those big beat guys that gave me a deal, I feel kind of funny about it. Would you mind looking at it? And I said, look, legally I can't look at it unless you sign a searchlight. Like I can't advocate on your behalf. That's your lawyer's job. I was like, if you want to sign a searchlight, then I can look after you. He's like, all right, let me go home. Let me think about it. And I was like, yeah, I'll be here tomorrow. If you want to come drop a verse on the record, come by tomorrow. And I thought for sure, like, it is what it is. He's not coming. And I'm in the studio, and like 1 o'clock in the morning, Nas shows up, says, okay, I'm gonna sign a searchlight. And I was like, cool. I said, so the next day, I sent him to my lawyer's office. I sent papers to his lawyer. And I had already signed this other MC out of Queens named OC, who had another dope verse on a record called Fudge Pudge by Organized Confusion. So me and O were already boys, so that was already locked. Like I wasn't even worried about that. But Nas, there was a huge rumble in New York about Nas, so I had to focus my energy on that. So he signed literally in 15 minutes. And my deal was not the Left Hand Records deal that Russell made me sign. Like I looked out for Nas. Like I made sure that Nasir signed a deal that would make him wealthy on his first album. So he was protected. So I went to Big Beat, and I'm sitting in front of two of my closest friends, Stretch Armstrong, who has a great radio show, and he's my boy, and my man Reef, who I went to high school with. And I'm like, sorry, but Nas signed a searchlight. I'm here to negotiate his deal. And they're like, come on, man, don't get in the way. I'm like, what do you mean get in the way? I mean, I'm going to keep it 100, so if that's okay with y'all. I'm like, yo, you offered him $150,000 and you're taking half of his publishing. You're not even giving him a publishing deal. And you're only offering him 8 points. Like, this is a 1985 record deal. This is Nas. And I said this verbatim. I said, this is going to be the greatest MC of our generation. Like, you can't offer him this garbage deal. Like, I'm not going to let him sign this deal. And you shouldn't want him to sign this deal. This is a BS deal. He's like, well, what do you want? So I told him what I wanted. They went to Craig Kalman, who at the time was in charge of Big Beat. And Craig said no. So I said, 1L, I'm out. And I went to Russell. I went to Russell's apartment, and I played him the demo. And we had 2-song demo. We had a song called Halftime and a song called I'm a Villain. I played it, and Russell said verbatim, he sound like G-Rap, and G-Rap don't sell no records, so I'm not interested. So I was like, peace, no problem. Went to Columbia, saw my girl Faith Newman, who had A&R'd my record. Again, relationships, right? We're talking about relationships. Walk in, I said, Faith, I signed Nas. And she said, and she walked out, and I sat there for like a half an hour, and she came in with the president of Columbia, Donnie Einer, and the head of A&R, David Kahn, and she said, we're not leaving until you make a deal. I said, cool. How many points does Billy Joel have? So they like, I said, no, seriously, how many points does Billy Joel have? And they said, why is that relevant? I said, because that's how many points you're going to give Nas for Illmatic. And they're like, how do you even justify that? I said, I justify it because he's going to be the greatest voice of our generation. That's how I justify it. So that's the deal. I said, we won't take a lot of money off the top because I don't want to have a lot of recoupment. We'll take 200 G's to make the record with a 10% ceiling on overages. You get no publishing, and we get 23 points. Pretty simple. And they said no. So I said, peace. And as I got up, Donnie said, wait. And Faith looked at Donnie and David, and they nodded. And they said, done. We want him signed tomorrow. Said, no problem. Called his lawyer, Scott Felcher. Said, Scott, we got a deal. It's coming through the pipeline. And then I walked to Zomba Publishing, which was the biggest publishing company in the world. And I said to the head of Zomba, Richard Blackstone, I signed Nas, I want to do a administration deal, an admin deal. So in music business, you have two choices in publishing. You can do a co-publishing deal, which means they take 50% of your publishing, or the publishing company can administer your publishing. So when you have a license come in, so when you have people that want to sample your record, they take 5% for doing the paperwork. It's a pretty fair deal. And I said, I want an admin deal. They said, well, how many records do you think Nas is going to sell first year? And I said, 1 million. They said, well, 5% of that is only going to be, and they did the mathematics, and I said, yeah, but I need a 5 times multiplier because he's going to be the greatest MC of our generation. And they gave me a check for $250,000 right then and there. So I had a check with Nasir's name on it, not mine. It wasn't Searchlight Publishing, it was Nasir Jones. And I go to Queensbridge, and I see Nas at his mom's apartment, may she rest in peace. And I said, get your mom out the projects, you're good. And I handed him a check for $250,000. And we made Illmatic.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's good, right? Yeah. So okay. So I want to kind of get a little bit more into the business side of it as well. So one of your absolute expertise is like promotion and marketing, right? So how did you first start getting into that? And maybe you could talk about, the Echo brand and some of the companies.
So the first thing I knew how to do, obviously because of Wes Johnson, was radio promotion. Like, it just they became my second family. My wife says it all the time that I have relationships with people that she doesn't even know because we're just so tight from radio. So with that strength of having that ability to get DJs and music directors to listen to my music and program directors to play the music, I figured that it would be a great strategy for me to start working at a record label and use those abilities. So I got a job as a VP at Wild Pitch Records, and I put out OC's Time's Up and The Coup, Fat Cat and Bigger Fish, and worked on the Entice record with Method Man, and had a good time. But I wasn't really in the head to be an executive, like behind a desk. My head was just all over the place. I wanted to do. My father used to say all the time, he still does. He says, you can do one thing great or a lot of things good. And I think what he was trying to tell me is like, focus on doing one thing great. I took it as focus on doing a lot of things good. You only have one life, do as much as you can, and do it as good as you can do it. And when you're done with it, go to the next thing. But one thing I'm really good at is marketing. I'm really good at marketing, really good at promotion. So when I was doing radio promotion, I was seeing different artists from around the country, and one of the artists I ran into was a dude in New York named Ill Bill, and he had a group called Nonfiction, and I helped put that group together. But he knew of a graffiti artist in Jersey that was starting a clothing line. And he said, yo, this dude really needs some help. Like, I see the vision. I'll never forget, Ill Bill said, he's like, I see the vision. Every time he drops off shirts here at my dad's shop, they sell out. Like, he's really got something going on, but he needs some help. So can you go see him? And gave me the dude's name. And the dude's name was Mark Echo. So I go to Jersey and I meet with Mark, and he had just moved his stuff from his house in Jersey to a little office in the Empire State Building. And he had his first line of clothes, and him and his partner sat me down and they said, hey, can you help us build this brand? We don't have any real connection to where we want to go with the brand. Can you help us? And I said, yeah. So I gave them what I wanted a month. They said, fine. I said, fine. And for the next 6 years, along doing radio, I built Echo Unlimited. I did all of the marketing, all of the promotion, all of the artist engagement the first 6 years. So we found a funny comedian and did advertising with him named Dave Chappelle. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Dave Chappelle. So we found him and we did some with him. And then we did a thing with Rakim, and he had never done clothing before. And then we did Busta Rhymes and his son. And we did this really cool campaign in The Source and XXL. And we went from 163,000 the first year to 1.5 million the next year. And when I left in 99, we were at 950 million a year. And then we went on to do 1.3 billion a year. So I did that, and that was what I did along with doing records and working record projects. And then I went back to Def Jam to run their promotion department with a couple of friends of mine, did that for a year, left, and then started doing indie and working records. And my company, it's always been Searchlight, but there's been different iterations. It's been Searchlight Productions, Searchlight Music, Searchlight Promotions. So I opened Searchlight Promotions, and at one point, 80% of every urban record that was coming out of the major labels, we were working in radio. We had long-term deals with Sony, with Capitol, with Priority, with Rough House at the time. I mean, everybody. So we were doing that, kicking off doing that. And so that's kind of, if it wasn't for Wes Johnson and it wasn't for him telling me, how am I going to get a bunch of brothers to play your record and throwing me that R&R, I probably would have been an ignorant artist who just would have been happy-dappy and followed whatever the label told me to do. But because I had that, and I always had this game plan in the back of my head. My mom made me put a plan together when I was going to be an artist. So I always had this plan in my head, like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I'll never forget this, and I hope my wife doesn't mind me telling this story. But right after I became an artist and my solo record went out, I couldn't get a show. Couldn't get a show. She had a baby coming on the way. We had bills this high. And she said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, I know you signed these artists, but what are we going to do? And I looked down at her and I said, the Most High has a plan for us always. And if we believe that plan, it'll happen. And the next day, no hand to the man, the next day, I got a call about that job at Wild Pitch. And that's kind of where my career started. So I've always had a very strong belief in a universal energy that's greater than mine, that will propel you as long as you believe in that energy. And if you follow the code of that energy, do right by people, do unto others as they would have done unto you. Don't lie in business. Don't cheat in business. Don't exaggerate in business. By the way, I made all these mistakes. I'm not saying I didn't do them. I'm saying I learned from those mistakes. My churn was me, also people saying, that kid might be full of BS. I'm gonna leave him alone for a minute. So those universal energies that I used and abused, I learned the hard way and the easy way that they work for you if you allow them to work for you. So in this space right here of 100 people, 70 of you are going to network in a way that can help the other 30, no matter what you do in life. It's just whether you want to reach your hand out to that person, whether they give you the integrity and the passion and you believe that they can rep you, because you, self, are a brand. And your brand is predicated on your integrity, your character, your honesty, your trust, and your faith. And if people need to believe you so that they can believe you about him, then that's what you have to build for yourself. So that's how I kind of got into the business. And again, one of the dumbest things I ever did, and I'm so glad she's here, because one of the dumbest things I did is I didn't listen to my wife. That was one of the dumbest things I ever did. I'm a man, I know everything. And she would say, I don't know about homeboy over there. And I'm like, what do you know? I mean, really, like, what do you know? The day I started listening to my wife, 36 years old, my life turned around. I mean, I had success, don't get me wrong. I had success, we were doing good, but we weren't really doing good. I mean, really doing good until I said, what do you think of this dude? And she was like, pfft. And it was just like, okay, doesn't happen. I don't do a deal now unless my wife meets my partners, to this day. And if she gives me the thumbs up, then they're good. And if she gives me the thumbs down, you don't get a call back. It's real simple. So have a good partner.
So nowadays, obviously with social media and the fact that internet exists and things like that, it's kind of a new ball game as far as like coming up and getting into the industry. So what do you think are like the major differences between when you were coming up and nowadays with social media and all the things available to to people trying to break into the industry?
So that's a great question. And I always tell people that I think nowadays with social media is very much like the old days, because our information superhighway was Rock and Soul Records and Fat Beats. And we would go there and we would see what was coming out, and then we'd listen to it. And then once we listened to it, we would tell all our people, yo, this is crazy. And even before that, like the Latin Quarter, the club in New York, like if you killed the Latin Quarter, the next day you were the biggest thing in New York. Because there were kids from Connecticut and Jersey and Long Island, and they'd be like, yo, De La Soul killed it. There's this new group called Public Enemy. They killed it. And it would just spread. And that was our information superhighway. It's the same now on the internet, except it's diluted with 50 billion things. But don't tell me for 1 second, if you go on Dat Piff, or you go on That Hot New, or you go wherever you go and you hear an MC that you think is fire, you're not telling 10 of your friends that that kid is fire, right? The best part of this industry is the come up, right? The first time you heard Lil Uzi Vert, right? The first time you heard acid rap, the first time you heard Illmatic, the first time you heard, right? Like, are you up on that? No? Ha ha! Get up on this. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, you ain't up? Ha ha, bang, 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 bang. That's the best part of music. The best part of being up on something. So when 5 years later, oh, I love Chance the Rapper. Man, come on, I've been listening to him since '07. Since acid rap. Come on, man, please, man, please, please, please. Oh, you up on ASAP 12E now? Please, man, '08, please. Please. That's the best part. And it was the same way back for us then. It is now. That pathway, whether it's created by bloggers, that pathway, whether that's created by apps, that pathway is the same thing, except now it's a global market. It's an international market. And you, every one of you, are the influencers. I don't care if you have 300 followers or 3 followers. If you put somebody up on game that is dope, you now can put 2 people up on game on something that's dope. Because your word, it means something, it has value. If you put somebody up on something corny, then you're corny. Congratulations. I had a mentor, and I love this line, and this is true science. If somebody calls you a horse, you're a horse. Tell them they're full of ish. If 20 people tell you you're a horse, you better buy a saddle. If I put you up on something and it's corny, I'm corny. And it might take me years to not be corny. Might take me years. Why should I listen to him? He put me up on something that was corny. Right? But maybe, just maybe, I put you up on something that is fire. And why wouldn't you come back to me and say, yo, what else are you up on? Each one of you has that as a brand. Each one of you carries that, no matter what you're hype about. Right now, hottest makeup line in the industry, Glossier. Every girl who knows anything about makeup, Glossier. Fire, fire. You're like, what's Glossier? I understand. You don't wear makeup. I got it. But any model type, BB Hadid to this, Glossier. That's it. That's it. If you're not up on it, trust me, in 3 years you're gonna be up on it, and somebody else is gonna be like, come on, man, that was 2014, B. Please, please. But that's what it is. That's what this internet is. It's an interlocking way of creating cultural data that is significant to someone else.
So, speaking of the internet and everything, I want to get a little bit into what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. So Serch and his team are actually working on a music app, like a social media music app. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have 3 kids about your ages. I have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And my oldest one was a senior at the University of Miami, and her passion was improv. She loved to do improv. So she would go all over the country to these improv troupes. And about 2 years ago, she was in Chicago with an improv troupe, a very well-known one called Improv Olympics. A lot of people came out of it, go to Saturday Night Live and all that. They had a 5-week intensive, and there were people there from Italy and Germany and Spain, and language barrier was a little off. But the one thing all of them talked about, and the one thing they all shared, was their love of music. One thing that broke the language barrier. So 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone goes off, and it's my daughter. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, oh boy, who am I going to have to shoot in Chicago? When does the plane leave? And she says, Dad, you know, whenever I'm on the internet, whether it's a dating app or whether I'm in front of somebody, they always ask me what kind of music I listen to, what's my favorite bands, what groups do I like, what shows do I go to. So she goes, do you know if there's an app out there that connects people solely on their mutual love of music? I said, I got to go to sleep. And I called my partner, and my partner, Ben Wilkinson, who is an amazing guy. He was the chief marketing officer for Rushcard. He was the chief marketing officer for Karmaloop. He's just a great guy. He's in Silicon Valley. We've been friends for years. I said, Ben, do some research. Come back to me. What do you think of this idea? He said, yo, that idea is dope. So then we called another friend. And for about 6 months, we did research. And I think that's another important thing about an idea. You can spring to action, or you can spring to getting information. And I always say, first and foremost, spring to get information. So we took about 6 months, and we figured out that in the last 4 years, there have been 5 or 6 iterations of an app that tried to do this. And they all failed, miserably. One was written up in Fast Company about how they raised $20 million, never got out of beta, and how this would never work, and it's a failure, and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah, no, that's, I know why they failed, because they didn't have a guy who loved music as the CEO and founder. It was just a bunch of data heads, and they don't understand culture of music. They don't understand how people do this over music. So we spent another year, and we built an app, and it's called Adue, A-D-U-E. It's in the Apple store right now. And basically what Adue does, and feel free to get on your phone and download it right now. Basically what Adue does is after you sign in, whatever music you have on your mobile device, it's not on for Android yet, that's the second iteration. But whatever music you have on your mobile device, it pulls it in. And then our algorithm, which we lovingly refer to as our special sauce, not the McDonald's type, this is good for you, it breaks down how you listen to music during your day. So you might like Little Yachty in the morning, if that's your thing. But you might at night listen to blank. So our algorithm will then quantify your music from the top 50 songs that not only you listen to, but BPMs, beats per minute. And then what happens is you find other people, and they're called tuners. We have our own language in this too. So there's a tuner that gets sent out, and then you find other people on the app, and it pulls in their music. And then once you get in sync, because when you go to the profile, there's a sync button, it then lets you both see each other's music that you don't have in common, but is similar to taste, BPM, and just feel. And you can share music and talk about music and have a mutual love of music. Because I might not understand Portuguese, but I damn sure understand that you love Jay-Z. And that's Adue. And I want to tell all of you that you guys here are going to be the first beta team for Adue. We are hiring interns, bringing interns on to build Adue right from here, from this school.
Yeah, and the end of August we'll promote it, but Serch and the whole Adue team is going to come, and we're going to do this again, but it's going to be strictly Adue and really talk about what it takes to like start an app and promote it and really get behind it. So that'll be in 2 months, so look out for that as well.
August 1st, I think, is the date.
Yeah, August 1st.
August 1st.
So what I want to do is I want to get into some Q&A.
I would love that.
So at this point, if you have any questions for Serch, just raise your hand and they'll come around with the microphone. Just make sure you wait till the mic shows up so that way the folks online can hear it as well.
And I'd love if you do download a do today, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you find me, you're going to find a lot of hip hop on my screen.
First question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, love.
So first question.
Yes.
What's up, MC Serch?
Hey.
My name is Manny.
Hey.
I'm from New York, the Bronx as well.
Hey, Manny.
Love your stuff. I had
Thank you.
2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is, like, I know you talked about like your deal with Russell Simmons, and you said it was a left-hand deal. Like, how long into the industry did you learn about like the different, I guess, publishing deals and what kind of deal you should sign versus the other? Because I know when you was talking about Nas, you was very specific on the type of deal that you wanted for him, for his career. Mm-hmm. And I guess the second question was, it's kind of a funny question, but I used to watch the White Rapper Show.
Okay.
I'm the one that screamed that out. I was just wondering, like, how did you go about that? And like, if you thought about doing like a follow-up, like a new generation White Rapper Show or something.
So the first question is, as soon as you sign a bad deal, you immediately find a lawyer and find out what's wrong with that deal. And that's what I did. Ultimately, we fired the attorney that made us sign the bad deal. But there's a great book called Everything You Want to Know About the Music Business. It's about 30 years old, but it's still relevant, and it can give you some great details about how. Manny, sit down, man, relax, B. No, so I mean, for me, and you got to remember, I signed my third base deal in '88. I renegotiated my solo deal in '92. I signed Nas's deal in '93. So that gave me a 5-year window to really learn the business. And like I said, you can move to action or you can move to information. I choose to move to information. And I really wanted to be in a perspective and be able to help the artists that were working with me. And OC got a great deal too. I mean, unfortunately, he was not at a great label, but he got a great deal as well. And the second thing is, what people don't really realize about the White Rapper Show is we weren't really trying to find the next great white hope. That was just the tagline. Ego Trip and the guys who executive produced it, it was more of a social experiment to show people that we came from 1520 Cedric Boulevard in the Bronx to white MCs who claimed they were dope who didn't know what Run's House was. You know what I mean? So it was a social experiment. It's not a competition show for real. Same reason why Miss Rap Supreme only was 1 season. We wanted to show people that culturally, as significant as the culture is, it's being lost in the translation. So that was the idea of the show.
Hello, Miles Warren.
Hey, Miles.
What's up, God? I was curious, 2-part question.
Sure.
So, were you in the studio when New York State of Mind was made?
And what's the second question?
Have you seen DJ Premier work? And it said that he's very fast, like he made that record in 20 minutes. How quick does he make those classics? Like how much of a machine was he, I guess?
Okay.
And then I'd love for you to sign this reel-to-reel pause tape I have of classic hip-hop that has you on here.
I would be honored to sign that. Not a problem, Miles.
Thank you so
spell
much.
it M-I or M-Y?
M.I.
Okay. All right. My son's name is Miles, but it's M-Y. So the first question. For me, my job for Illmatic, and this is not disrespectful, but I'm just keeping it 100. I wanted to be the Jew lawyer. Like, all I wanted to do was make sure the samples were cleared, make sure all the legal is cleared, the studio bills were paid, the producers were paid, so Nas could do nothing but create. One of my biggest challenges as being an artist is I had to deal with a lot of nonsense with Def Jam. They would lose our reels, they wouldn't pay studio time, we'd have to chase checks. I didn't want to have Nas do any of that. So I didn't spend any time in the studio with Nas when he did Illmatic. I went there once to hear the album when it was done. I cried and went home. So that was it. The second part is Primo is a machine. But Primo, when I was telling you before, he does a lot of his pre-production at home. So when he comes into the studio, he already has his loops, he already has his drum beats, he lays everything down. But then he'll get into the zone of the studio and the energy of the studio. So with New York State of Mind, like most of that was done in pre-production at Primo's house in Brooklyn. And they did that together, they laid it out, and then they went to D&D, which is the studio that Primo worked in for years, and then made that record happen. And like I said, my role in that, because it's not like I can tell Nas, like give him critiques on lyrics, like let's be for real, like and it's not like I could critique Q-Tip, LES on beats, Pete Rock on beat, like come on. All I could do is make sure that I could be the Jew lawyer and make sure that all the business was taken care of so that when Nas sold his first record, he was already making money. And that was it for me. Like that was the number one thing for me is Nas on April 12th in 1994 sold 125,000 records his first week, and Nas was a millionaire 10 days later. And that has nothing to do with the now 10 million records Illmatic has sold, and it was written, which did 3.2 million in one year, and is now at 15 million records. So my job was to make sure Nas could have Queensbridge funding for the rest of his life.
How you doing, MC Serch? I'm Sharon.
Hey, Sherrod.
And the question I have was like, during the industry now it's so much about popularity contests, people don't really appreciate bars or originality no more. What's your best advice you'd give an upcoming artist who's trying to make their way into the music industry?
It's a good question. I think you're right. I think that there are certain elements of the industry that don't care about bars. I think that that's true. But I think that there are anomalies to that, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Logic, that are anomalies to that because they stay in their lane and make great music. One of my favorite artists now is Joey Badass. And I love Joey because from the Pro Era tape that he did in 2008 to where he is now, 2012. 2012 to where he is now, he's still 22. Like, he's so efficient with what he says and how he says it. Everything is so compact and makes so much sense, and there's such density to his verses. Like, I couldn't see him, like, rhyming over a Harry Fraud beat. Like, that's just not where I could see him. But I see him on a Static Selector beat all day. So I think that if that's your lane, then don't be deterred by how much fame or how much popularity you have. If your focus is you want people to respect your rhymes. If you want people to respect your rhymes, then keep your beats simple. Don't have them too layered. And just spit bars. Spit bars. Someone will love you. Someone will respect you and appreciate you, and you will get to a point where you don't need the music business to go do shows. You won't need the music business to validate you. You won't need a record label to promote you. You will build your own catalog and your own connection to your fans directly based on the things that you love to spit.
How you doing, Serch? I'm Stan.
Hey, Stan.
One of the dopest things that I think, like the biggest jewels you dropped, was how Wes didn't lay the carpet out for you. Like, he made you grind, and you had to go around and meet these PDs all around the country. So what is the modern groundwork that you think it is? Like is it still the PDs, or like what is the modern
That's
groundwork?
a great question. That's a great question. Thank you. So Stan, I would say that radio means nothing today. I think it means it's absolutely worthless. I think that radio as a paradigm is strictly there to promote cars, orange juice, and women's products. But the labels need the radio stations because there's still a belief out there that radio stations sell records, right? I personally believe that your most important outlets are complex.com, I hate to say it, but WorldStar. I just think that there's so many more important outlets to create your trap if you will, your lane. That if radio gets involved, that's great. I would rather see a young artist have a deal with a great publishing company that has licenses with film, TV, and commercial than a record label that's trying to get you played on Power 95.3 here in Orlando, or Hot 97 in New York, or Power 106 in LA. I think that there is, right now, today, for the current artist, you have much better facets of business that can help you and benefit you, that will give you much more visibility, whether that's the video bloggers or whether that's the straight up bloggers or whether that's Not Right or whatever, and getting those relationships and building those. The major labels have to deal with the radio stations. That's a given. They have to. You don't have to. Independent artists don't have to. Your Hot 97 is Complex. Like, Complex breaks more music than any other outlet in the internet. It's just Fader, another one. Great place for music. Those are where you need to build your relationships.
My name is Nima.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Nima.
Nima, hi.
Yes, hi. I have like 2 questions, maybe
Sure.
3. First question is, what situation occurred that basically forced your hand and always going to your wife before you sign any deals? Like, what was the first thing that happened?
Okay.
And the next question is, as an artist, what steps can I take to build my brand in such a way that I can reach like audiences that
Okay.
I would not really reach, and how can I get to like Complex,
Okay.
basically?
Great questions. So, I don't know, honey. I think I lost $100,000 on a deal with Ted Howe. I think it was something stupid. Okay, so this is embarrassing, but again, I'm gonna keep it transparent. My wife used to lovingly refer to me as Captain Save-A-Ho. And that was because I would get into business with people who wouldn't benefit me, who would feed my ego because they would just big me up. But they didn't bring anything to the table logistically. So I would be doling out cash for stuff, and my wife would be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what are they bringing to the table? And I would be disrespectful, and I would say something stupid, and she'd be like, fine, watch. You know, and I think she was hating on me, but then 2 months later, it would happen. So she sat me down and she just said, like, look, you're not just spending your money, you're spending my money. You're spending our money. I want to have a say in everything that goes on in this household. And it's very simple. If that's not our deal, then you go your way and I'll go mine. But if we're going to build this household and we're going to build this for our family, I need to be involved. And from that point, every deal I did, exception of a few, which also failed, but every deal I did, I made sure she was involved. She knew the person, she knew their background, she could look them up on the internet, she could do a character search. There's a way to do that on the internet as well. You can have a lawyer do a legal background based on other information. So she would do that. Like, for example, I just got involved with a whiskey company. I built a big liquor company called Nouveau back in 08 and 09 and did really well with that. So now I'm into whiskey, and the first thing I said to my wife was, what days do you have off? Because she runs the Contemporary, well, she works for the Contemporary at Disney. I said, I need you to get these days off because I need you to come down with me to Dallas to meet these partners, because I'd never met them face to face, and they wanted me to take equity in their brand. And she went down there, and she doesn't drink, and I don't drink. And we went down there, and we met the partners, and we had dinner and all of that. And I said, what do you think? And she said, you can sign the contract, but let's just see how it goes. That's how it's been going for the last couple of months, just building this company. So, you know, it's really important to have that one partner in your corner that you know is not there to hate on you, but is there to build you up. I had such a stupid street mentality from running the street. Even though I was a middle-class Jewish kid from Far Rockaway, I was in the hood so much, I had a hood mentality. Like, it was just backwards. So that's one. So two, Nima, as a brand, the one thing you can do better than everybody else is make music you love. Don't make music you think Miles is gonna love. Don't make music you think Stan is gonna love. Don't make music you think Manny's gonna love. Make music you love, that feeds your soul, that makes you cry at night, that makes you dance in the morning. And then put it out. And then email Complex. Just email them. Say, hey, I'm a new artist. I'm from Orlando. Give it a listen. Somebody will respond, even if it's an automated one that says, thank you for contacting Complex, with da 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 da. Find out who. Don't ask me. I can tell you 100 names. It's the CEO and it's the owner and the founder. Trust me, they don't care about you. But the guys who head up the music department, here's another good one, Mass Appeal. I'll give you a freebie because I know he'll take your call. Rob Kenner at Mass Appeal. Does all the music. Rob Kenner at massappeal.com. Great human being. Passionate about Caribbean music, hip hop, R&B, everything. Everything that goes through Mass Appeal goes through Rob Kenner. Rob Kenner is the type of human being, well, he will respond to you. Find out who those people are, make those relationships. I always tell people a cup of coffee goes further than anything else you can do. A trip to New York, and then the third question about your, getting out and building a brand. So start local and then think global, right? So a dear friend of mine here who I love to death, Nails, he's on the morning show at Power. Nails has a really cool little following of other DJs. Really cool. Hit Nails up at power93.com. Say, hey, I'd love to take you for a cup of coffee and pick your brain. A, you're feeding his ego because you're now telling him, I appreciate you for what you do and I think you know something more than I do. B, you can talk to him about your passions because his passion is music. And C, he's going to give you 2 or 3 names that you can follow up on. We talked about this before, the important thing of network, right? Network. Make your net work. 70 of you in here will help the other 30. Just a fact. Whether it's getting a job at Chick-fil-A or getting a job at Paramount, 70 of you will help the other 30. It's just whether you want to help them or not and what they do honestly to want to give you that help.
How's it going, MC Serch? My name is DJ Superman. So I want to tell you, Nuvo was actually the first drink I bought from the ABC store when I turned 21. I got pretty much like 2 questions and then like a statement.
Sure.
So my first question is, the school I graduated from was Princess Anne, so how do I break out of the stigma that everybody wants to say, oh, he's going to be like Pharrell? And then my second question is, I'm trying to start up a music production company and a music record label, and what were some of the challenges that you went through and some things to look out for? And then my third thing is, can I give you my business card?
Absolutely, you can give me your business card. So first thing, I don't believe in stigmas. I don't believe in that. I think that that's something you're putting in your head. If you're not Pharrell, then no one's going to think you're Pharrell. And you don't ever have to mention it. If you didn't mention that, I wouldn't have known. And I wouldn't have cared. Because all I would have cared about is the music you make. And if it was dope or not. That's A. B, bottom line, have a dope artist. And be critically focused on that artist. If that artist is not better than Kendrick, J. Cole, Joey Badass, don't put them out. Period. Be critical, because your first step for both the name of your brand and the name of the artist is everything. First perception, especially on the internet, is everything, because they will go back and check your homeboy's trash record from 1996. So don't put out anything that you're not 100% sure can go out there and compete in today's market. Period. But be critical. I always do this. This is my little tip for you. if I leave the studio and I'm in love with something, right? You in the studio, you hear it. There's going to be the #1 record on the planet. This is great. I go in the car. As soon as I go in the car, for me, it's satellite. I put on satellite. I put on channel 45 or I put on channel 44, Hip Hop Nation. I hear the next 3 records. Because I promise you, the next 3 records, even if it's a new artist, he's doing something that I'm not doing because he's on the radio and I'm not. So I listen to those and then I pop mine in. And if the hairs stand up on my arm, I know I got a hit. And if I feel the littlest twinge of anything else, that record's trash and it never sees the light of day. That first instinct, that first goosebump, like, wow, yo, I just heard blase, splee, blase, splee, blase, and I heard my record and my dude. Okay, I got something. But if you hear it, for me, I would hear something, especially if I was in an A&R meeting and I had left the studio and I thought, oh, this is great. And the second it went on, I was like, oh boy, this is trash. And it wound up being trash. So be super critical. You don't have to put out records just because you have a production company. You don't have to put out records just because you have a record label. Sometimes the best people in the industry don't put out anything. My favorite story, one of my dear friends, James Lopez, he was working for Madonna and he went to work for a little label with a DJ named Dr. Dre at Aftermath. And the first MC they wanted to put out was this no-name kid from Detroit named Eminem. And his whole staff told Dre, don't do it. Don't put out the white boy. Verbatim, don't put out the white boy. But Dre said, no, this kid is dope. I feel it. And he didn't listen to his whole staff. The rest is history. Don't put out records just because you have a record label. Don't put out records just because you have a production company. Put out great things. If you're Superman, then your records have powers above and beyond anybody else. Prove it. Don't say it, prove it. So when Miles goes, yo, Superman, yo, that joint you put out with Blase Splee got me lit. Then you know. And Miles, will you get his business card, please? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
My name is Dez.
Hey, Des.
I got 2 questions. One is I'm trying to start a entertainment company, and I was wondering, like, how would I go about getting contracts just made so I have them just, for the future? And 2, when you first heard Chance the Rapper, like I heard him, '07 Acid Rap, what did you think? What was your first impressions of that?
Okay. So any contract can be Googled, or you can start an account on LegalZoom.com for $20 a month, and they can give you any template of any contract you need. Starting an entertainment company sounds like a big endeavor. So, focus it and narrow it to the couple of things that you want to focus on first and foremost. I can tell you right now that between my publishing company and the TV shows that I'm developing and the marketing, we're spread pretty thin. And I've been doing this for 30 years, so kind of narrow your focus on your entertainment business. When I heard acid rap, I thought Chance was special, but I didn't really think he was that special. Like, I love Chicago artists. I love the cool kids. And obviously, I love Kanye and I love Common. But I also love Chief Keef. I love his energy. So when he came out of Chicago, it was a little bit of a departure. But I loved the balance of that mixtape. Like, everything just flowed in and out of each other. Like, it really felt like he took a year just to, like, get the whole flow of that mixtape tight. And I was stuck on Stupid for that mixtape for like 10 months. But I just didn't think, again, in '07, '08, I didn't think he would become what he's become, But I knew he was special. Yes.
All right, my name is Uda. I got a question for you. I know everybody tells people to take advantage of the internet, but I feel like the street too is also a key part because not everybody has access to internet and things like that. So how would you take over the street in a sense, as in like trying to get out there and whatever you do?
It's a good question, Uda. So You're putting me in an awkward position because my wife is here. So there's two levels of the street, right? You got the dope game and you got the strip clubs. So the kids who hustle on the block, whether that's in Crime Hills or in Paramore, they usually have a little money in their pocket that they can buy a mixtape and spread the love that way, right? It's not exactly the most positive way to do things, but from time that I was coming up, from the original 50 Cent and Hawk and Supreme, like that's just how hip hop got spread, you know? Depending on what kind of music you're making, depending on kind of records you're making, go where the streets are at. You know, it's real simple. It's a real simple binary thing. Like, you know where people are hanging out, so go see them. In Detroit, there's a big, once a year, it's called a dead homie picnic. And all the people in Detroit, all the gangs, they call a peace day and they all come to this big park and they all wear their white t-shirts to honor their boys that fell, and they have a giant barbecue. But outside of that, every street label has got their tapes, hustling tapes, playing music, hustling tapes. So there are community affairs, community events. I'm sorry, I should say there's things that happen at the county park yard off of Colonial, right near Pine Hill, sorry. But so that's where the community's at. One of my personal, again, this is just a personal thing, but you also, depending on the record you're making, right? You have an entire community that goes to church every Sunday. So if you're doing something positive and it's uplifting and it's music that's uplifting, then go to the church. You know what I'm saying? Figure out exactly what your music means and what it's saying, and then go to that location. Yep.
Got something for everybody here. If y'all want to network, you know, make the network like he says. I got business cards. If y'all got business cards, I'll be glad to take them too. Real talk.
Good. Uda, making it happen.
What's up? Name's Gabe.
Hey, Gabe.
I'm from New Jersey, and
Okay.
my questions are based off the New York, New Jersey rap game. Basically, where do you see New York rap in today's culture with the rise in Atlanta sounds and West Coast? And do you think it's missing anything, like something it used to have with 50 and like the late 90s, early 2000s? What would it be missing?
Thank you, Gabe, for that question. I think territories really don't mean anything anymore. You know, I love Queens. I'm a do or die Far Rockaway kid all day. My wife is Elmhurst. Like, I love New York, but it doesn't matter to me if a kid comes out of Queens anymore or not. Like, of course, I'll big them up. Like, I bigged up when Chinks, may he rest in peace, came out of Far Rockaway. I was like, yo, Chinks. Like, I listened. I was stuck on Stupid on that album. You know, I told French all the time, like, yo, what do you need? Does he need money for a video? Like, what do you need? Like, he's like, nah, we good, we got it, we good. But I love Chinks and Stack Bundles, may he rest in peace. Like, those were kids from around my way. And I love those dudes, you know, and both of them just met their demise way before they had their time. So Dave East and ASAP and Troy Ave, like, I love those guys, but it's not important for me that they come from New York. I'm gonna support home team. If I have a budget, whether it's Puma or whether it's Royal Elite Vodka, and I can do some promotion and I can get in a video with them and help them offset their costs, like, of course I'm gonna look out for home base. But I also did stuff with Yachty. I also did stuff with Lil Uzi. I also did stuff with 21 Savage. Like, to me, just make great music. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's territorial anymore. Unless you're in New York and you're listening to Flex, and Flex is dropping bombs and saying, I hate everything outside of New York and I'm just gonna play all New York stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Like, but I will say this. I think there is an edge that a New York artist has that many artists don't have. And I'm not saying that's better or worse. I'm just saying it's an edge. Dave East, just his approach to his records is that hollow, I'm from the pissy building in the projects and I am going to do this or I'm going to die trying, right? Like, trap kids from the South, they come from a house. Like, I'm not saying that that's a good house, but it's a roof and it's a door. Like, people don't understand the project life until they live in a project. There's a different sense of struggle from those kinds of artists. And I am affectionate. I love that. But it's not important. I hope Davey sells 3 million records. I'm privy. I heard half the album that he did with Nas. It's incredible. The album that he's got coming out on Def Jam is fire. But I like Earl St. Clair, and that kid's from Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to me, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, that territorial, pound your chest, I'm from blank, like, that's cool, but it's not important. It's not important like it was in the 80s and 90s or the early 2000s, because it was only coming from one or two places. Now you get great hip hop from everywhere.
So we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
So I just want to remind everybody that Serch and the entire Ado team will be back August 1st. So hopefully you guys can come to that, and you should definitely download the app, because it's going to be a real awesome thing to have. But I just want to say thanks so much to Serch for coming out.
And please, we're going to be coming to the school 1 week a month. Popping into classes. Again, we're looking for interns to help build our music community, our music social community. It's connecting people you're in tune with. So if you want to get in tune with us, please be on the lookout. We'll be sending out emails and we'll be sending out messages. And Jason and his team and Todd and his team, we're going to be looking out for people. And here's the bottom line that you should know, because I said it before, I'm going to say it again. The top interns that we find that do work, we're going to set up interviews at some of the biggest companies in the world for you, whether that's Paramount, MTV, Def Jam, Island Def Jam. Wherever you want to go, if you're one of the top 1% of our interns that does what we ask them to do, we will set up interviews for you. Not guarantee of a job, but it's a network. So thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thanks again.